Alright, good evening, or morning, or whatever this is for you. What I wanted to show you was a quick trick to get a old rusty vise like this one to, I guess, looking like a one that wasn't left outside for 40 years. This particular vise I picked up for $35, which is kind of on the high end of what I'd like to pay for something like this, but it is made in Japan. It's a Babco Model 150, and it's a good vise. So you can't have too many of them. I have like, well, I guess three sitting right here. That Iron is another Japanese-made vise, good quality. So anyway, I'm gonna take this thing and put it in this bucket of water, mixed with some sodium bicarbonate, and that's baking soda. So it's nothing special. This is actually the one my wife uses for baking, and I'm gonna take it, mix it in this water, and then I've got a simple battery charger here, made for cars, and I'm gonna put it on the 2 amp, 12 volt 2 amp section there, and yeah, let me show you what I'm doing really quick. Nothing scientific about this. Well, at least as far as I'm concerned, because I don't know the science of it. All I know is this stuff removes rust. So you're supposed to use about a tablespoon per pint of water. I've got approximately three and a half gallons of just regular tap water in here, and I'm going to dump this whole box in there because it doesn't cost that much. And I think it'd be better to have a little too much than too little. So, alright, I've got that in there. I'm going to just mix this around with my hand. Okay, now, I haven't tried this yet. Hopefully this thing fits in the bucket, but it should. So, I might have to do this twice. Once with this half and once with the other, but I wanted to buy a cheap bucket and not go and spend like 10 bucks on one, so I went to Home Depot and just bought another 5-gallon bucket. Probably got like 5 of these running around this place somewhere, but anyway, I'll do this portion of the vise this time. So I'm gonna bring the camera in a little bit, let you see how much is covered. Alright, so this is gonna take maybe 2 days or so, but you basically just leave it until you're satisfied with the results. So now you're going to want to take the negative terminal and connect that directly to whatever you're doing this process to. So I'm just going to connect this here. So much rust. Hopefully it can get a decent connection. Alright, and then with the positive lead, you need to attach that to a piece of steel and then put that in the bucket. I suppose I wasn't that prepared for this video, you'll have to forgive me. So, if you got a piece of steel here, just regular half-inch mild steel tubing, I'm going to grab a clamp really quick. You don't want this to have physical contact with there, because the whole idea is that it does it and draws the rust out, trying to pull whatever through the stuff. So, man, that sounded smart. Just gonna use a little welding clamp here. Good. So that's in the water. Now I'm gonna go ahead and attach this positive lead to that. And this is supposed to start bubbling. So on 2 amps it takes a little bit. I can probably bump it up to 10 amps really quick. Hopefully that doesn't fry anything. And I want to say that this is possibly some hydrogen gas that bubbles out of here. So might consider that before you start going to town So anyway, I'm going to leave this guy for a while. I want to zoom in on this thing bubbling so you can see that there's something going on. So you can probably see that rod bubbling. I'm not a science teacher. I've never done this before, and pretty damn sure it's gonna work though. I mean, there's something going on. Even the part's starting to fizz. So they say to do this on 2 amps, but 10 amps seems to be kicking butt. Maybe it's kind of hard on the charger though, so maybe I'll turn it down to 2 amps. All right. So anyway, hopefully this works out. I'll update you guys as soon as this thing is done and show you how it turned out. But don't be intimidated by this project because it's so simple. I can do it. All you need, baking soda and water in a bucket. Now, I was thinking, oh shoot, I'll just throw this in one of my like stainless steel tubs or whatever. But then you got to separate your positive terminal from the rest of it. So you'd have to use some type of non-conductive insulator in order to separate that. So just get a plastic bucket. You can get one of these things pretty cheap. And yeah, this seems to be working pretty good. So I'm going to throw a couple of these guys in here too. I've got a rusty ass tap and a rusty Morse Taper 2 drill chuck, or Jacob's chuck, whatever you want to call this thing. So this is for one of my lathes, and the previous owner had it stored in some wood. It was like a 4x4 that was pine, but it's some cheap wet wood, and he had all these holes drilled in there, and every single item that was in there, which is probably 50 things of this nature, were all rusted like this. So anyway, the guy was not a machinist, so he didn't really think about that, and that's too bad. But I'm gonna try to make these tools rock again. So this tap's probably okay. I mean, these teeth are still pretty clean. Most of the rust is just down here. And, you know, this thing's probably about a $10 tap. If it's not made in China, then it's approximately a $2 tap. And then, I guess really it'd be like 17 because you'd use the $2 tap and then have to go back with a decent one once that one snapped off. Okay, so you got those items in there. They're also doing the bubbling thing already, so this is brought back to 2 amps for kicking butt. Quick update. So I noticed that most of the bubbling and stuff was happening on one side of this vise. So what I did was, instead of having just one end of the bucket with a positive lead, I kind of rigged something up really quick. So now both sides have a positive lead. And you can see I've just got a couple welding clamps set up. This is kind of redneck, but what's good about rednecks is they get stuff done. So anyway, I've just got a piece of all thread here connecting 2 of my vice grip welding clamps, and I've got a piece of square tubing there going all the way down to the bottom of the bucket, and a piece of, this is actually stainless steel tubing I bought for making some new burners for one of my barbecues, and that's going down to the bottom of that bucket. So we're sitting pretty good there. I've got them clamped well against the sides, and the positive lead is connected currently to this piece, which is transferring the electricity through this clamp to the all thread to this other piece here, and it seems to be sufficient, and we're getting a lot more action going, and we're currently at 2 amps still. Turn it on 10 amps really quick. There's a lot more bubbles happening if you put it on 10 amps, so pretty tempted to leave it there. I don't know about walking away from this overnight while I sleep in the house and have this thing sitting here cooking off. So we're just gonna leave it on 2 amps when I'm not monitoring it. For the record, somebody said that this would create some flammable gas when you're doing this, and so to not smoke around it. So I don't really see how this could be flammable, so we're gonna try it right now on video. Just got some propane here and our little science experiment. Well, we've got flames touching the water and nothing's happening, so I'm calling bullshit on that one. We're about 4 hours into this de-rusting phase. There's quite a bit of crap floating on top now, and occasional larger bubbles flowing up. So I added a little bit more water to this just so I could submerge more of the vise. Quick update for you guys. We're looking at about 14 or 15 hours into this process, and there's a lot of crap floating in this water now. So this is definitely working. You can see actual rust just floating up there, so this is going to be probably pretty nasty on the top by the time this is done. I'm going to probably leave this in there for about 48 hours total. I came out here just to make sure my shop wasn't burning down. Alright, this is 48 hours later. Lots of crap floating on top. And yeah, looks like some of that stuff's kind of worked its way up the material. I'm going to go ahead and unplug this beast now. Alright. I took that other clamp off because the thing was sitting there arcing. When I came out here before I turned the light on, I saw it arcing, and there was a lot of heat being generated by that, so I don't want to burn my shop down. It was actually melting into the bucket a little bit too, so I don't think that was that great. Now this was not rusty. Now it's covered in rust, so I don't know if this is like rusting itself, or it pulled off the rust from that thing and kind of drew it into this. I'm not sure. So we can scrape it. Kind of looks like this is rusty now. Well, this thing didn't get any lighter. Still looks kind of rusty. Let me see if I can prop this up a little bit. I'm going to get a wire brush and just kind of scrape that a little bit, and we'll see what happens. Wow. Well, all that is just flaking right off and cleaning up. Wow. It's almost like it parkerized it. It's kind of how this looks. Looks like a kind of a gray. Dude, that's just down to straight iron again, or steel, or whatever the heck this is. That's amazing. There is no rust left. It is gone. That looks like fresh out of like a forge or something now. Yeah, I'm literally just kind of wiping it off. I don't even know if I need a wire brush for this, but it kind of gets in there. Let me see if I can get that camera a little closer here. So it's removing the paint also. Damn. Alright, this filming was not very well planned. But anyway, alright, let's look at this. This was a very rusty area right there. Now there's no rust. Just perfect. Alright, you see this crappy area here? That whole 150 area? Just perfect. So this does work. That is, I was not necessarily expecting that to work. Not this well, anyway. Wow. Well, the Japanese people that made this would be happy to see this thing was resurrected. See if I can get this camera in. I don't know if that's focusing well or not, but yeah, anything that was rusty, the rust just kind of falls off. There's nothing left but beautiful steel behind it. Okay, so I decided just to break out the pressure washer and hit this guy up with a little blast of water to blast off most of that rust. So, as you can see, overall did a really good job of removing some rust. And here's even underneath there. It's starting to get dark, so the lighting's probably not great, but yeah. And then after I pressure washed it, I just took some air, kind of helping it dry off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime this with some rust inhibitor, and then probably polish off the anvil area there. I'm going to take this thing apart, prime it, put it back together, maybe polish that just a hair. At least take off the paint from that area. And yeah, so cleaned up pretty good. Alright guys, so got the vise all back together. I took it apart, the whole thing, and just did some primer and put some paint on it, and got some grease on all these points under here. I also kind of just polished them up with some light grit sandpaper to get them nice and flat again, and put some grease on there. So as you can see, turned out pretty good, man. I didn't have to do any scrubbing. I was kind of trying to brush off the rust that was kind of just on the outside, and that was taking a while with the wire brush, so I just took it out, hit it with my little pressure washer, and it knocked it all off. Then I blew it off with just an air nozzle and let it dry. Then I primed it, painted it, and that was about it. So yeah, the rust removal process worked really well. Overall, I'd probably do it again. It's kind of a pain, you know, dealing with that water and crap, but I guess everything you do in a shop creates a mess of some sort. Also, here is one of the Jacobs chucks that I threw in there. This thing was really rusty. You can see these pits here. They're, you know, it's not going to make the material go back, but it did remove the rust, and so that was easy to clean up. And I just put some Rem oil on this to prevent it from rusting again. This is another little chuck that I dropped in there. It was pretty rusty also. I got these when I bought a lathe, and all the tooling that came with it, unfortunately, was all rusted. And yeah, so instead of just throwing it away, I thought I'd give it a shot. This was an adjustable spanner wrench. It's actually a snap-on, and I couldn't even tell that it was a snap-on. And yeah, I threw it in there also, and it cleaned up really nice. Yeah, so anyway, I'd give this a shot if you had some rusty stuff laying around. I don't know much about removing rust, so maybe there's other better ways out there, but I thought I'd give this a shot. Give this a shot. Yeah, I'll probably take this vise and throw it on my Bridgeport and mill this thing flat. It doesn't really matter, but I think it'd be kind of nice.
Well, thanks for taking the time to watch this video today. It was unedited, so hopefully it doesn't sound too crazy, but just wanted to show you the process of this. Turned out pretty good. Hopefully you can give it a shot sometime.